Welcome back to Night of the Nonsense. Hey, we're working backwards in the book of Judges in the story of Gideon. We just talked about last night the fact that Gideon separated his men into three 100-man groups with a trumpet, a jar, a torch, and they were to yell for Gideon, or for the Lord and Gideon. It's important to put the Lord first. For the Lord and for Gideon, right? Now, how the last night I left you with this question: how did we get here? How did we get to the place where Gideon, right, did what he was told? Took the weird things that God said to him and said, yep, let's go, guys, let's go fight this battle. No swords, no spears, no chariots, no horses, right? No anything. You can't even take pitchforks or shovels or anything, right? Just take these things. How did we get there, right? Was it because Gideon had this incredible, unbelievable faith? Well, let's pick up the story, right? It's important, right, that God worked here, and He says this, right, at 12, right, and the Midianites and the Amalekites, all the people of the east lay along the valley like locusts in abundance, and their camels were without number, as the sand that is on the seashore in abundance. When Gideon came, behold, a man was telling a dream to his comrade. Then he said, Behold, I dreamed a dream. Behold, a cake of barley bread tumbled into the camp of Midian, and came in the tent, struck it so that it fell, and turned it upside down so that the tent lay flat. And his comrade answered, This is no other than the sword of Gideon, the son of Joash, a man of Israel. God has given into his hand Midian and all the camp. Soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and its interpretation, he worshipped, and he returned to the camp of Israel. Right? And he said, Arise, for the Lord has given the host of Midian into your hand. Right? So again, how did Gideon get to this place? Well, he was at the camp. Right? So again, he went down to the camp, right? And he saw this huge amount of people, right? He saw this humongous, without count, amount of people. All of the Amalekites, right? And all of the Midianites were down here waiting for battle. And he knows he's got 300 men. So imagine walking up to this scene and seeing all of this, and knowing that God has chosen for you 300 men to fight this battle. So Gideon looks at this whole thing, but he just happens to be in the right place at the right time, overhearing the right conversation. He gets close enough to the edge of the camp where he can hear a conversation, and in that conversation, one of the enemies is telling another member of the enemy clan, right? Hey, here's what I saw, right? I saw this, and it flattened our camp, right? It flattened our tents. And he immediately, so one has a dream, a vision, the other guy immediately interprets. God talks about that, right? So he doesn't say, hey, let me go ponder it, let me go think about it for the day, so that Gideon's not left with just the story. No, the story and the interpretation come outside of Gideon. So again, didn't include Gideon telling the story, and it didn't include Gideon interpreting the story. God gave the dream and the interpretation, right, at the same moment for Gideon, as he went down to the camp, right? Tomorrow night, we'll talk about why he went down to the camp. But tonight, we're on this side of the story, where he's down at the camp and he hears this story. And what immediately is the result? Well, the guy who interpreted it says, this just means Gideon's going to wipe us out, right? The Lord and Gideon are going to wipe us out. So what happens? Gideon goes back to the camp. No, this is important. What does he do first? So Gideon and the 100 men so Gideon, right, as soon as Gideon heard the telling of the dream and his interpretation, what did he do? He worshiped. He immediately realized what was going on. This is what got him the faith, right? God told him he was going to have the victory. God put it in story form. God interpreted it, and Gideon believed it. And he goes back to the camp when? After he worships, after he gives God thanks for answering him, after he gives God thanks for revealing to him, after he gives God thanks for God saying simply, I'm going to take care of this, then he goes and he tells the guys, come on, God has given us the victory. right? God does not expect you to go out and just tell people God's giving me the victory. God's going to work through this. God's going to do this, right? Without hearing him promise that he's going to do that. So sometimes we hear that through reading of the word. We just see all the promises God has given. Sometimes God directly tells us, right? The word talks to us. Jesus talks to us and says, don't worry, I got this, right? Sometimes somebody else comes to us, dream form and interpretation, tells us, hey, I had this. I had a vision that you were doing this or this or this or this or this. And sometimes we just immediately believe it. Got to be careful with that stuff. But God works that way. Right? God in different ways. Maybe he'll send an angel to you to just outright tell you. But it's whether or not you believe it that is important. God didn't expect you to believe it just willy-nilly, like, okay. Would he like you to have that kind of faith? Absolutely. Right? But he will remind us. He will tell us. And if you look back through your stories, you could see, where are the places that God said, I got this? Who's the person that walked up to tell you, God wants you to know you got this? What book did you read? Where were you in the Bible? Where were you in your prayer time? What devotional did you read? What did you see from God? When did God say to you, I'm going to give you the victory? Right? 2 enemy men outright admitted, they declared with their mouth, got the victory. Right? Have you been in the workplace? Somebody said, you know what? I don't know why, but you're going to be the next manager. I don't know why, but you're going to make it through this situation. I don't know why, but you're going to get to leave this situation. You're going to be removed from this. Right? I don't know, but God's going to give you a different opportunity. When has God revealed himself to you? So in the middle of your struggle, if you're looking for a win, if you're looking for God to encircle the enemy camp and win, has he told you he's going to do that? Right? And have you believed it? Right? Now, how did this happen? How did Gideon get to the camp? How did he get to the camp to get to this moment? I hope that you're recognizing, we're going to end this at some point, and I'm going to really hit this home, but I hope you're realizing how important each of these moments are. Obedience in each moment creates this pathway to victory. Obedience in your moments is going to create a pathway to victory. Right? God does want to remind you of his promises. He does want to remind you that he has the victory. But you've got to be in the right place at the right time so you can hear from the Lord with clarity. Before you go declaring things, Gideon could have just started saying, God's got this, God's got this, God's got this. God reminded him exactly how he was going to get there, right? How was he going to get there? Well, God sent Gideon to be at the right place at the right time so that God could give Gideon a message, not through the good guys, but through the bad guys. Be careful that you're not just dismissing what the bad guys in your life are saying, because they might be delivering a word from the Lord. Hey, chew on that. We'll talk to you next time. Nightly Nonsense.